This was a horrible act of violence. During the investigation, our homicide detectives, which are some of the best in the country, identified a suspect in the case as a 40-year-old Michael McNair. The suspect was taken into custody by the U.S. Marshals after evading law enforcement for more than a month. This arrest represents an important step towards accountability, but it does not lessen the pain or the loss caused by this crime. Our child should never be a victim of violence. That reality weighs heavily on every officer involved in this investigation. I'd like to recognize the dedicated team of homicide investigators, along with the regional bomb and arson investigators and the ATF special agents for their professionalism and diligent work. Under the command of the U.S. Marshals Assistant James Tapp, the alleged killer is behind bars. And he'll talk about that, James Tapp, in a moment. But this case is now headed through the judicial system and the criminal justice system. Circuit Attorney Gore's team will prosecute this case to the fullest extent of the law, and right now I'd like to turn it over and introduce Circuit Attorney Gabe Gore. Circuit Attorney.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon. Today, our office filed charges against 40-year-old Michael Antonio McNair, Jr. in connection with the deaths of 45-year-old Latasha Brown and her 9-year-old daughter, Paige Buckner. This case involves an act of extreme violence and cruelty that took the lives of a mother and her young child. Our hearts are with the family and loved ones of Latasha Brown and Paige Buckner during this time that they have suffered an unimaginable loss. Following an extensive investigation, the defendant has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of armed criminal action, first-degree arson, and unlawful possession of a firearm. Our office will continue our investigation along with SLMPD, and we will leave no stone unturned in prosecuting this heinous crime to the fullest extent of the law. I'd like to thank St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department Homicide Unit for their great investigation in this case. I'd like to thank the ATF for collaborating with them on the arson investigation. And I also like to thank the U.S. Marshals for their great work in apprehending the defendant who we've charged in this case. At this time, I'd like to introduce U.S. Marshal Assistant Chief James Tapp, who will speak to the collaborative efforts that led to the defendant's apprehension. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The chief would like me to go over the timeline of events for this occurrence. And on behalf of U.S. Marshal Jordan, who cannot be here, I'd like to express our gratitude for this team that we've brought on this case. So the Marshal Service got involved because St. Louis City Homicide reached out for assistance in locating McNair. The Eastern Missouri Fugitive Task Force, which is 4 teams in this area, the Eastern District of Missouri. We have a city team, a county team, a west team, and then a Cape Girardeau team as well. We have multiple task force officers and Deputy United States Marshals on each one of these teams in the area. This case culminated down in Poplar Bluff with 3 of our teams, the St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and our Cape Girardeau team all assisting. At the time of the homicide, McNair was supervised by the U.S. Probation Office. He was previously released by BOP September 12th of 2025 and was under active supervision by the United States Probation in Eastern Missouri. On December 30th, 2025, a federal supervised release warrant was issued for McNair for violating his compliance and his terms of supervised release. Shortly after receiving this federal warrant, our team went to work on the case, and the investigation led them to believe that McNair had possibly fled to the Poplar Bluff area. He has family and associates down there. Multiple attempts in early January were conducted to take McNair into custody, specifically January 8th and other dates around that time frame, and those were unsuccessful. Countless hours of surveillance and work went into this case by the task force officers and deputy U.S. Marshals, and ultimately the task force, the city task force, developed information that McNair was living in the 3400 block of Highway B in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. McNair was previously bouncing around many addresses down there, many vacants, and after multiple arrest attempts throughout January, he was taken into custody in the early morning hours of January 27th, and he was safely taken into custody without incident. The following agencies assisted with the fugitive case, and all were integral in his safe capture. Without their assistance, this extremely dangerous fugitive would still be free. Obviously, the Eastern Missouri St. Louis Task Force, County Task Force, and the Cape Girardeau Task Force, St. Louis City Homicide, St. Louis City Intel, the Butler County Sheriff's Department, the Poplar Bluff Police Department, the Missouri State Highway Patrol, the Butler County Attorney's Office, and the U.S. Attorney's Office in both St. Louis and Cape Girardeau. That's pretty much sums up the case and why the Marshal Service was involved with this warrant. Thank you.
We'll open up to a few questions. Keep in mind, it's still ongoing, so we can't talk about a lot of the details, but we'll open up to a few questions.
Can you explain the relationship between the defendant and victims?
Circuit Attorney, if you're comfortable with
I'll take that. As we allege in a probable cause, the defendant was in a dating relationship with LaTasha Brown, and we believe was staying at that residence at the time that this occurred.
Do you believe there are other people, I know the investigation's ongoing, that may have been helping to house this gentleman for the last month or so as you were looking for him?
So that is part of the investigation it's not in our office. I am aware that there has been a complaint filed against individuals in Butler County by the Butler County prosecuting attorney, and they're handling that investigation and prosecution, so I won't speak to that.
It took over a month to arrest him. What made it difficult to apprehend him? Was it bouncing around different addresses, or what made it more difficult to arrest this man?
Yes, ma'am. He was actively fleeing us, like you said. He was bouncing around addresses all over Poplar Bluff. We did have information, and then the snowstorm kind of hit, and that led to a couple days as well for us to safely get down there to Poplar Bluff. Obviously, it's not in the St. Louis metro area. So, yes, he was bouncing around. He did have multiple people helping him, and we defer to the local prosecutors down there.
Was one of those people helping him a law enforcement official?
We're not going to talk about that. I know that like I said, that's a case being prosecuted in Butler County. I know that I wouldn't want law enforcement agencies talking about a case that I was actively prosecuting, so we're going to respect that and refer you to the probable cause and complaint that's been filed in that case.
that complaint's public, on case time.
The Poplar Bluff Police Department had indicated that there was a tracking device that was placed by the lien holder on the victim's vehicle that helped track it, I guess, to Poplar Bluff, and the victim, placing the victim in it. Is that something you can speak to?
So I believe what's set forth in the probable cause statement, it does cover those things, but it was also through that device as well as cell phones, the vehicle was able to be tracked.
Can you talk a little bit about, I mean, as much as you can, about the homicide investigation? When did this person become a suspect? Did his name come up in the investigation?
Well, without giving away so much in the investigation, it's still ongoing. We still have a lot of work to do, although it's great to have this person in custody and make sure that we can bring somewhat closure of this suspect. But to the case, not to compromise the investigation, not to compromise what the homicide squad has done, but I would bring Lieutenant Blaskowitz up, and he can only reveal so much, but I'll have him try to answer some of your questions. So John Blaskowitz, he's our lieutenant commander of the homicide squad for St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department.
His name was on our radar from an early going standpoint. With that being said, we've got to wait for information to come back to us via search warrant returns and whatnot. I would like to say that the community was quite helpful with this. Our phones did ring, giving us potential information that aided the case. But beyond that, that's all I'd like to share right now.
insistent that this man was the killer? Were they also very helpful?
Family's been in contact from the minute this case started to the start of this press conference.